Today we're going to talk about Siddhartha Gautama and the religion of Buddhism that he creates. Siddhartha Gautama was born in India sometime in the 5th or 6th century BC. He's believed to be a contemporary of Confucius and Zoroaster, meaning they lived around the same time. Siddhartha is born into a very wealthy, noble family. And while his family would be in the Kshatriya class, based on the Hindu religion, the Buddha is actually, according to some recent sources I've heard about, some here from YouTube, the Buddha was probably a Jainist, so not a Hindu. The Buddha, in all of his wealth, was completely separated off from normal society. He lives in a gorgeous estate surrounded by high walls, and his father won't let him go outside the walls because he doesn't want him to face the dangers of the outside life. So the Buddha grows up with this idyllic, perfect childhood, rich, fed, surrounded by beautiful people, as you can see here as an adult. The Buddha marries a beautiful wife, has beautiful kids. Everything is just swell for Siddhartha. One day, Siddhartha convinces a chariot driver to secretly take him outside the castle walls so he can see what life is like for other people. And on this journey, the Buddha sees, or he's not the Buddha yet, by the way, he's still Siddhartha Gautama, Siddhartha sees an extremely sick person, an extremely old person, and a dead person. And it totally rocks his world. He doesn't have any place in his brain to put all of this suffering that he'd never experienced before. Here he is on this chariot ride. You can see the old person here. So the Buddha is racked by contemplation about why there is all this suffering in the world. And he's so troubled by these ideas that he actually leaves his life, leaves his wife, his kids, his parents, his palatial estate, all the beauty and splendor that he has, never to return. And he goes out and lives in the woods and tries to contemplate and find the reason behind this human suffering. Here he is contemplating. Notice how skinny he is. Legend has it that the Buddha supposedly survived on 1 grain of rice a day. So one day, after 7 years, Siddhartha is sitting beneath a tree, contemplating the mysteries of life and suffering, and then he has an epiphany. He realizes that truly the cause of human suffering is desire. And this leads the Buddha to come up with 2 different concepts, the 4 Noble Truths and the 8-Fold Paths, which he believes people can use to help end the suffering in life. The epiphany that Siddhartha has as he becomes the Buddha consists of 2 groups of ideas linked to each other. First, the 4 Noble Truths, the cause of human suffering. The Buddha says, life is suffering, right? To live is to suffer. But he says, in life, what actually causes suffering is attachment. Attachment to things, to desires. Essentially, desire causes suffering. And then he says, if you can end your desire, then you can end your suffering. And finally, he says, he has the 8-fold path to offer his disciples. And if they follow these 8 steps, not necessarily consecutive steps, then they can end their suffering and achieve nirvana. Now remember, the Buddha is a Hindu, and he believes that people are reborn, reincarnated. And like Hindus back in the day, being reincarnated wasn't necessarily a good thing, right? Because life is suffering. And so the Buddha believes that nirvana, that this beauty that people can achieve if they end their suffering, will allow them to escape the cycle of birth and death. And similar to what the Hindus believed, except what the Buddha said was it didn't matter what caste a person was from. Anybody with the right amount of knowledge and meditation and practice and learning could achieve nirvana and not need to move throughout the caste system. And essentially die, merge with God, and become nothing and pure energy, so to speak, I guess. Although maybe that pure energy thing is just some 80s pop rock working its way into my ideas about Buddhism. So, the Eightfold Path to end desires, end suffering, and achieve nirvana consists of 8 steps. And like I said, they're not necessarily in order. And we're going to go over these in a lot of detail in class, and I'll give you a much more detailed reading on them. But here they are in brief. Right view, which is essentially the right belief about life as you become essentially a Buddhist. And this means if you follow the Eightfold Path, essentially you become a Buddhist monk. And you give up your worldly possessions and you focus on achieving all your energy is focused on achieving nirvana. So the right view is this idea that you accept the Four Noble Truths and believe that you should now dedicate yourself to following this Eightfold Path to enlightenment. With this right view comes a motivation to act, the right intention, and then right action and right speech and right action essentially focus the mind on the way you speak and the way you act, doing no harm to any life around you, and to once again be focused on this sort of oneness and achieving enlightenment. The right livelihood actually speaks about what you do for a job, right? And it says, like if you want to follow this path and don't become a monk necessarily and move away from society, you could, as long as you don't have a livelihood that directly harms people, like, you couldn't be a drug dealer, you also can't be a butcher because you're not supposed to slaughter animals, you don't want to be in the military, nothing that makes you harm people. Here are my sources, and thanks for listening. And these sources are primarily for the images. The information comes from several different history books and also from Wikipedia. Thank you.